Hi, I'm going to create a short tutorial on how to create an application in TrueCreate. So I'm going to start with, move this window around so you can see my hoop. We're going to start with using the quick trace tools on a background because I find that to be the easiest way to create an applique in TruEmbroidery. So we're going to start with background, and this is something you can do on your own because I'm using a JPEG that comes with the software. So we're going to choose rubber duck today because it's a good graphic for applique. Open. Now that you've got this, you notice that it's right on the edge of my hoop, which is not a good thing. So it's time to move the background and resize it. So I'm going to go to this tool here, move background, resize it, and move it into place. And somewhere around there is fine. Right click, finish move background. I always forget to right click to finish an action in TruEmbroidery. So if I make a mistake in the future, you know why. When I do an applique, I like to see my film strip and my control panel. And on my control panel, I'm going to go to the Create tab. Okay. The very first thing that we're going to do is make an applique out of the yellow portion of the duck, because it's the biggest portion. And if you notice my film strip, it's blue. I don't have a blue duck, I want a yellow duck. So I'm going to change that color. I'm going to pick color, click on the yellow body. Isochord poly comes up because that's what I like to use, and it just picks a color that's close enough to that background. So we're going to press OK, and it turns it to yellow. So that's what the stitch around my applique will have. To create the applique, I'm going to use the quick trace tools. And all the applique stuff is under line. So I'm going to go under line. I have, in this box says my applique method is applique method number 2. Well, let's take a look at that. In applique number 2, it's this option here. Running stitch, stop, double stitch, stop, border stitch. What this does is that it creates a running stitch. It'll stop the machine. And the running stitch basically shows me where I can place my applique. So actually the step that's in between is where you actually would take your hoop out, iron down your little applique guy, put it back into the machine. It will then double stitch around your applique, and then it will create the border stitch. In my case, it's satin. So, okay. So I press the quick trace tools here. I'm going to click on the yellow part, and it selects the yellow part, which is great. It's going to have this color tolerance thing. If you move it to the right, it selects more because you have less. But if I pick it over here, it picks the yellow part, and that's just fine for me. And I don't need many points because I don't think I'm going to be moving them, so low is okay. So there we go. Again, the part I keep forgetting, right click, finish quick stitch line. So that's all good. Now let's say on this eye, I actually want to do embroidery on top of the applique. Okay, so next step would be to start picking colors again. Then pick a color, put it on the white, select my white. Okay, shows up in the film strip. This case, I'm going to use a pattern fill to create the eye, but I don't want to include the black part. So I'm going to get this quick stitch fill with auto hold. Select the white. Same color tolerance thing comes up, and it deselects, and you can see in here the black circle. Don't need many points. Okay. Right click, finish quick stitch, fill auto hold. So the next step would be for me to pick the black inside. I'm just going to hover over there, picks black, okay. And in this case, I'm going to, again, quick stitch fill, doesn't need a hole. Selects the black part, okay. Right click, finish quick stitch. But this time I'm going to go to pattern fill because I think I'm going to change the properties on that object. I think in this case a simple Saturn area would work just fine. Okay. Good to go. Yep, so that's good. Next step, I'm actually making an applique out of the wing. You can see the wing here. This is going to be repetitive, but pick the color. That's okay. You can change it later. Orange peel. This time I'm going to make an applique, but I don't really want a satin line, something, let's do double stitch zigzag. Quick trace tool, selects the outline, perfect. Okay, and you can see it's a different stitch. Now I'm going to go and do the duckbill. Again, same thing, color picker, because it works really well. Harvest, okay. And just do a normal pattern fill with a quick trace tool. There you go. I might select medium for more points and you'll understand why in a second. Okay. Finish quick stitch. Now if I zoom in to this area, you know that there's a big overlap between the satin stitch of the yellow and the fill area. So there's two things I'm going to do. I'm going to move in these lines so there's less of an overlap. And to do that, I go over to Edit. And I've got this Move Lines, or Edit Points. And I'm going to start moving these edit points around. So there's a little less overlap. I don't need to make it perfect because I'm going to do a few other things to kind of get this to look a little better. And I just added some points. Go back to Move Points. Moving these along. And you can see where from the background where you hit or miss. And that's good enough for now. Okay. Now the next thing I'm going to do is let, the stitch order has, this happening last, and that's probably not a good idea because I really want the yellow to overlap on this pattern fill. So I'm going to select these two, the color change and the pattern fill. Using a shift click to select them both, I'm just going to go down here and move them to the top. There you go. All done. Finish back select. Okay, so now let's click on that. There you go. Now you can see I got a little bit of a gap here. I can fix that. Move that back up. Something else so I can see. There we go. There. So now you can see that that's a lot better. Okay. Zoom back in. Now the only thing that's left to do is save the EDO file so you can come back and make further edits after after you stitch it on your machine. You see if you need to make further edits to make the design work. So you can file. Save. You can save. Let's say duck try one. Now save it as an EDO file so you can come back later to stitch it out. I'm going to export embroidery. And here I have my machine picked. I'm at this point I'm going to leave these options because they seem to be okay for what I'm doing. And again, call it duck in my designs, good enough. And stitch it out and see if it works.